Hello and welcome to this exploring session, Sophonisba Tragedy of Part 2 by John Marston. Yes, it's a play with two titles. In fact, its proper title is probably The Wonder of Women, but it's Sophonisba in my mind, and that's how we go labelling it for the podcast, videos, sessions, etc. As we go on, we've done a little under half the play so far. We've been going into the politics of uprising and war and who's marrying who and stuff, and it's moved at a fair old lick, and it's raised lots of questions. We've met our favourite characters so far. Has just died, so you won't have to worry about him. And we have various people in awkward, unfortunate, and dangerous situations. This is a tragedy, so trigger warning here. There may be some unpleasantness ahead in various different forms. So be warned on that. We're going to be rattling through Act 3, 4 and 5 at some lick, but hopefully not so fast that we skip over interesting details. Reading today, Sophonisba herself is...
Hello, my name is Lynn. I live in the northwestern United States.
Reading Zanthia today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian and I'm currently living in Yorkshire.
Reading Syphax today is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake and I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
Reading Laelius today is...
I am Alan Scott, neither an actor nor an academic, based in Suffolk.
Reading Massinissa today is...
Hello, I'm Lois. I used to teach English literature. Now I live in London.
And reading Scipio today is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I don't live in London, but I love the resigned tone that Lois used there. Just like, I live in London. This is what I've come to.
The horrors. Reading Asdrubal and Jurgurth today, and possibly some additional parts as well to be assigned randomly, is...
Hi, I'm Francis Cox. I'm an actor living in Amsterdam.
And reading the Enchantress Erictho today is...
Hi, I'm Steve. I live in Lancaster. I'm desperately trying to shake the impression that Marston has written a play with a main character who is a bush kangaroo.
Yes, and I'm your host, Robert Crighton, and we're moving straight on. I will be maybe reading in additional parts as we go, or redistributing them as we go instead. As mentioned, not necessarily a happy, cheerful play coming up. Act 3, Scene 1, we are dipping straight into sexual threat. Or the threat of sexual violence is very apparent as the plot moves forward. So, Act 3, Scene 1 begins with Syphax with his dagger twinned about his dagger twinned about her hair, drags in Sophonisba in her nightgown petticoat, and Zanthia and Vangue following, and between this and the last act there was organ mixed with recorders. So various people entering.
Must we retreat? Suitor such squeamish ears. No, Syphax has no knees, his eyes no tears. Enraged love is senseless of remorse. Thou shalt, thou must. King's glory is their force. Thou art inserter in my palace, fool. Dost think he pitieth tears that knoweth to rule? For all thy scornful eyes, thy proud disdain and late contempt of us, now will revenge. Break stubborn silence. Look, I'll tack thy head to the low earth, while strength of two black knaves thy limbs all wide shall strain. Prayer-fitted slaves, our courtship be our force. Rest calm as sleep, else at this quake. Hark, we cannot weep.
Can Sophonisba be enforced?
Can, see.
Thou mayst enforce my body, but not me.
Not?
No.
No.
No. Off with thy loathed arms, that lie more heavy on me than chains that wear deep wrinkles in the captive limbs. I do beseech thee.
What?
Be but a beast! Be but a beast!
Do not offend a power can make thee more than wretched. Yield to him to whom fate yields. No, Massinissa's dead.
Dead?
Dead.
To gods and men, good men's shame.
Help, Vangue, my strong blood boils.
Yet save thine own fame.
All appetite is death. I will, I must. Achilles' armour could not bar out lust.
Hold thy strong arm and hear me, Syphax. No, I am thy servant now. I needs must love thee, for, oh my sex, forgive. I must confess, we not affect protesting feebleness, entreats, faint blushings, timorous modesty. We think our lover is but little man, who is so full of woman. No, fair prince, love's strongest arms not rude, for we still prove without some fury there's no ardent love. We love our love's impatience of delay. Our noble sex was only born to obey to him that dares command.
Why, this is well. The excuse is good. Wipe thy fair eyes, our queen. Make proud thy head. Now feel more friendly strength of thy lord's arm. Come, touch my rougher skin with thy soft lip. Zanthia, dress our bed. Forget old loves and clip him that through blood and hell acquires his wish. Think not, but kiss. The flourish for love's fight and Venus' bliss.
Great dreadful lord, by thy affection grant me one boon. No, I have made a vow.
Vow? What vow? Speak.
Nay, if thou take offense, let my soul suffer first, and yet...
Offence? Not Sophonisba. Hold. Thy vow is free as, come, thy lips.
Alas, cross misery, as I do wish to live, I long to enjoy your warm embrace, but, oh my vow, 'tis thus. If ever my lord died, I vowed to him a most private sacrifice before I touched a second spouse. All I implore is but this liberty.
This? Go, obtain. What time?
1 hour.
Sweet good speed, speed adieu. Yet Syphax trust no more than thou mayst view. Vangue shall stay.
He stays.
Xanthia? Xanthia!
And enter a page delivering a letter to Sophonisba, which she privately reads.
Thou art not foul. Go to. Some lords are oft so much in love with their known ladies' bodies that they oft love their veils. Hold, hold. Thou find'st to faithful care king's bounty hath no shore.
You may do much.
But let my gold do more.
I am your creature.
Be yet. 'Tis no stain. The god of service is however gain.
Zanthia, where are we now? Speak, worth my service. Are we done well?
Nay, in height of best, I feared a superstitious virtue would spoil all. But now I find you above women rare. She that can time her goodness hath true care of her best good. Nature at home begins, she whose integrity herself hurts, sins. For Massinissa he was good, and so. But he is dead, or worse, distressed, or more than dead, or much distressed. Oh, sad poor! Who ever held such friends? No, let him go. Such faith is praised, then laughed at. For still no, those are the living women that reduce all that they touch unto their ease and use. Knowing that wedlock, virtue, or good names are courses and varieties of reason to use or leave as they advantage them, and absolute within themselves reposed, only to greatness ope, to all else closed. Weak, sanguine fools are to their own good nice. Before I held you virtuous, but now wise.
Zanthia, victorious Massinissa lives. My Massinissa lives. Oh, steady powers, keep him safe as heaven keeps the earth, which looks upon it with 1,000 eyes. That honest, valiant man. And Zanthia, do but record the justice of his love. And my forever vows, forever vows.
Aye, true, madam, nay, think of his great mind, his most just heart, his all of excellence, and such a virtue as the gods might envy against this Syphax is but, and you know, fame lost. What can be got that's good for?
Hence, take, nay, with one hand.
My service.
Prepare our sacrifice.
But yield you, aye or no?
When thou dost know.
What then?
Then thou wilt know.
And exit Zanthia. Sophonisba is left alone.
Let him that would have counsel void the advice of friends made with weighty benefits, whose much dependence only strives to fit humor, not reason, and so still devise in any thought to make their friend seem wise. But above all, oh, fear a servant's tongue, like such as only for their gain do serve. With the vast capacity of space, I know no violence so most truly base. Their lords their gain, and he that most will give with him, they will not die, but they will live. Traitors, and these are one. Such slaves once trust, whet swords to make thine own blood lick the dust.
Cornets and organs playing full music enters the solemnity of a sacrifice. Enter under the conduct of Zanthia and Vangue the solemnity of a sacrifice, which being entered, whilst the attendants furnish the altar, Sophonisba sings a song, which we don't seem to have, which done, she speaks.
Withdraw, withdraw.
And all but Zanthia and Vangue depart. And I'm just going to say Francis can read Vangue when he turns up in dialogue in a moment.
I not invoke thy arm, thou god of sound, nor thine, although in all above high powers immense. But jovial Mercury, and thou, O brightest female of the sky, thrice modest Phoebe, you that jointly fit a worthy chastity and a most chaste wit, and you, corruptless honey and pure dew, upbreathes our holy fire, words just and few, O deign to hear. If in poor wretches' cries you glory not, if drops of withered eyes be not your sport, be just. All that I crave is but chaste life, or an untainted grave. I can no more. Yet hath my constant tongue let fall no weakness, though my heart were wrung with pangs worth hell. Whilst great thoughts stop our tears, sorrow unseen, unpitied, inward wears. You see now where I rest, come is my end. Cannot heaven virtue 'gainst weak chance defend? When weakness hath outborne what weakness can, what should I say? 'Tis Jove's, not sin of man. Some stratagem now. Let wit's God be shown. Celestial powers by miracles are known. I have it. 'Tis done. Zanthia, prepare our bed. Vangue.
Your servant.
Vangue, we have performed due rites unto the dead.
Sophonisba presents a carouse to Vangue.
Now, to thy lord, great Syphax, healthful cups, which done, the king is right much welcome.
Were it as deep as thought, off it should thus.
And he drinks.
My safety with this draught.
Close the vault's mouth, lest we do slip and drink.
To what use, gentle Negro, serves this cave, whose mouth thus opens so familiarly even in the king's bedchamber?
O my queen, this vault with hideous darkness and much length stretches beneath the earth into a grove, 1 league from Cirta. I am very sleepy. Through this, when Cirta hath been strong begirt, with hostile siege the king hath safely scaped to...
The wine is strong.
Strong?
Zanthia!
What means my princess?
Zanthia, rest firm and silent. Help us, nay, do not dare refuse.
The Negro's dead!
No, drunk.
Alas!
Too late. Her hand is fearful, whose mind is desperate. It is but sleepy opium he hath drunk. Help, Zanthia.
They lay Vangue in Syphax's bed and draw the curtains.
There lies Syphax's bride. A naked man is soon undressed. There bide dishonored passion. They knock within. Forthwith Syphax comes.
Way for the king!
Straight for the king I fly, where misery shall see naught but itself. Dear Zanthia, close the vault when I am sunk, and whilst he slips in bed, escape. Be true, I can no more. Come to me. Hark, gods, my breath scorns to crave life. Grant but a well-famed death.
And she descends. Enter Syphax ready for bed with attendants.
Each man withdraw. Let not a creature stay within large distance.
Sir,
Hence, Zanthia, not thou shalt hear, or stand without ear reach of the soft cries nice shrinking brides do yield. When...
But sir...
Hence! Oh, stay. Take thy delight by steps. Think of thy joys, and make long thy pleasures. Oh, silence. Thou dost swallow pleasure right. Let's take away some sense from our delight. Music! Be proud, my Venus. Mercury thy tongue, Cupid thy flame. Above all, O Hercules, let not thy back be wanting, for now I leap to catch the fruit none but the gods should reap.
Offering to leap into bed, he discovers Vangue.
Ah! Can any woman turn to such a devil, or... Vangue? Vangue?
Yes, yes.
Speak, slave. How camest thou here?
Here?
Zanthia. Zanthia! Where's Sophonisba? Speak at full. At full. Give me particular faith, or no, thou art not.
Your pardon, just move, prince, and privateer?
Ill actions have some grace that they can fear.
How came I laid? Which way was I made drunk? Where am I, think I? Or is my state advanced? Oh, Jove, how pleasant it is but to sleep in a king's bed!
Sleep there thy lasting sleep, improvident base. Oh, thirsty slave!
And Syphax kills poor Vangue.
Die pleased. A king's couch is thy too proud grave. Through this vault, say'st thou?
As you give me grace to live, 'tis true.
We will be good to Zanthia. Go, cheer thy lady, and be private to us.
As my life.
And she descends after Sophonisba.
I'll use this Zanthia, and trust her as our dogs drink dangerous Nile, only for thirst, but fly the crocodile. Wise Sophonisba knows love's tricks of art. Without much hindrance, pleasure hath no heart. Despite all virtue or weak plots, I must. Seven-walled Babel cannot bar out lust.
And descends through the vault. We're going to go straight into Act 3, Scene 2. Enter Scipio and Laelius with the compliments of Roman generals before them. At the other door, Massinissa and Jurgurth. Cornets sound marches.
Let not the virtue of the world suspect sad Massinissa's faith, nor once condemn our just revolts. Carthage first gave me life, Her ground gave food, her air first lent me breath. The earth was made for men, not men for earth. Scipio, I do not thank the gods for life, much less vile men or earth. No, best of lords, it is a happy being, breath well famed for which Jove sees these thus. Men, be not fooled with piety to place tradition's fear. A just man's country Jove makes everywhere.
Well urgeth Massinissa, but to leave a city so ingrate, so faithless, so more vile than speech, civil speech can name, fear not. Such vice scourges heaven's grateful sacrifice. Thus all confess, first they have broke a faith to thee most due. So just to be observed, that barbarousness itself may well blush at them. Where is thy passion? They have shared thy crown, thy proper right of birth, contrived thy death. Where is thy passion? Given thy beauteous spouse to thy most hated rival, statue, not man, and lost thy friend Geloso, man worth gods, with torches have they rent to death.
Oh, Geloso, for thee, full eyes.
No passion for the rest?
Oh, Scipio, my grief for him may be expressed by tears, but for the rest, silence and secret anguish shall waste. Scipio, he that can weep grieves not like me, private, deep, inward drops of blood. My heart, for God's right, give me leave to be a short time man.
Stay, Prince.
I cease. Forgive if I forget thy presence, Scipio. Thy face makes Massinissa more than man. And here before your steady power, a vow as firm as fate I make. When I desist to be commanded by thy virtue, Scipio, or fall from friend of Rome, revenging gods afflict me with your torture. I have given of passion and of faith my heart.
To counsel then, grief fits weak hearts, revenging virtue men. Thus I think fit, before that Syphax know how deeply Carthage sinks, let's beat swift march up even to Cirta, and whilst Syphax snores with his late thine...
With mine? No, Scipio. Libya hath poison, asps, knives, and too much earth to make one grave. With mine, not. He can die, Scipio, with mine. Jove say it, thou dost lie.
Temperance be Scipio's honor.
Cease your strife. She is a woman,
But she is my wife,
and yet she is no god.
and yet she's more. I do not praise God's goodness, but adore. Gods cannot fail, and for their constant goodness, which is necessitated, they have a crown of never-ending pleasures. But faint man, framed to have his weakness made the heaven's glory, if he with steady virtue holds all siege, that power, that speech, that pleasure, that full sweets, a world of greatness can assail him with, having no pay but self-wept misery, a beggar's treasure heap, that man I'll praise above the gods.
Libyan speaks bold sense.
By that which all is, proportion, I speak with thought.
No more.
Forgive my admiration. You touched a string to which my sense was quick. Can you but think? Do. My grief would make a saint blaspheme. Give some relief, as thou art Scipio. Forgive that I forget I am a soldier. Such woes Jove's ribs would burst. Few speak less ill that feel so much of worst. My ear attends.
Before then Syphax join with new strength Carthage, or can once unwind his tangled sense from out so wild a maze, fall we like sudden lightning before his eyes. Boldness and speed are all victories.
Scipio, let Massinissa clip thy knees. May once these eyes view Syphax, shall this arm once make him feel his sin. O ye gods, my cause. Justice is so huge odds that he who with it fears heaven must renounce in his creation.
Beat then a close quick march. Before the morn shall shake cold dews through skies, Syphax shall tremble at Rome's thick alarms.
Ye powers, I challenge conquest to just arms.
With a full flourish of cornets, they depart. And as it's the end of the act, there might be more music as they decide what they're going to do with the lighting, with the candles, as they go into Act 4. 2 scenes there, lots and lots and lots of things to discuss. I think we'll just briefly linger here with this scene. Massinissa is really interesting about his character, or what's going on with his character here. Is like he's talking to this chap who's basically just keeps going, calm down. And Massinissa just can't seem to stop himself. Oh, not massive. Yeah.
It says at the beginning is, they've treated you atrociously. Come on, get angry.
It's Michael Winner.
But he's got to get appropriately angry in
Yeah.
a Roman sort of way, manly and.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, we've got lots of bits of repetition. Marston does seem to like his little bits of repetition, shall waste, shall waste. I don't think those are typos or random accidents. They do seem to be stylistic features. So we've met Scipio. Any thoughts on Scipio here? No, nobody's got anything really, have they? It's all about Massinissa, isn't it? He's a feed. He's a feed for Massinissa's demonstrativeness. Alan.
I must admit, the more I see of this, the more I think it's actually a three-hander with Massinissa, Syphax, and Sophonisba, and a bunch of extras who are largely feeds.
I wouldn't quite go that far, but I think you're right. The core company and the core characters we're supposed to actually engage with is relatively small. I wouldn't quite go all the way on that, but yeah, there's definitely a sense that we haven't met Scipio before, but he's lingered heavily in everybody's talk throughout. Eric.
Also, you kind of get the impression that Scipio is the one who's like the sort of the strategist in all this, like the tactician. But yeah, Massinissa didn't really he doesn't really demonstrate that much military brilliance, does he? He just sort of acts and reacts. I think I'm not sure.
He doesn't seem to be a political animal in the same way as other people are. He's taken a dart and he's been protected and he's gone out and done some fighty stuff. But, he hasn't been engaged in any of the kind of plotting that other people have done. Helen.
Yeah, I mean, Scipio's a man who in Rome's interest will ally with whichever part of the Libyan civil war is convenient, because he was on one side and now he's on the other. He just makes an ally of whoever can cause the most trouble with his view of destroying Carthage, whatever.
Yeah, he's the old soldier. He's the military man. So at this point he doesn't seem to be very multi-layered.
And he has no feeling for right or wrong.
There's a lot of realpolitik going on in this play, isn't there? And you do get the impression of sort of adult and child here, don't you? In the nature of the Massinissa is really coming across as a young lad. Okay, let's move back to the beginning of the act. Syphax and Sophonisba. Thoughts on what's going on here? It's all a bit unpleasant for various reasons, but it's not trying to be pleasant. It's trying to demonstrate some Syphax, who we've been with from the beginning, who's doing things for very dubious reasons, and is not coming across as a not a nice chap. Thoughts from the room? Who wants to leap in? Lynn.
That was not. Yeah, sorry about that, everybody. I really felt like I wasn't mastering the syntax in Sophonisba's longer passages. And maybe that's deliberate. That circumlocution is part of her strategy to get out of this situation. But like making sense of what she was saying, I feel like I was not particularly successful at that.
I think they're saying, you're right, they're saying interesting about that sense of perhaps someone thinking on their feet and trying to think their way towards, I need to do a sacrifice thing, ritual thing, buying time. And maybe that is something that is coming out of the dialogue. Sarah?
Yeah, you can see where she pivots. There's one particular speech, I'm not going to go back and try and find it now, but there's like she's resisting and she's resisting and she's resisting, and then all of a sudden she pivots, and it's like, oh well, obviously we like a strong man who commands us, and I would be totally up for this because obviously I'm going to obey you apart from, and I just think it's really beautifully written, that, and it's something to flag up in the text that your two actors there who are playing Sophonisba and Syphax have really got to be on their game there, because you've got to believe that she, as the audience, you've got to convince the audience that she is able to think that quickly on her feet and do it convincingly, and that he is convinced, because he changes tack. He then pivots completely as well in response to her. And he goes from being basically, massively aggressive, seeing red, he's about to rape her, to being like, oh well, yeah, actually if she's gonna actually love me, then I'm prepared to kind of, I'll wait an hour, whatever. So yeah, that's just something that really has to be played with awareness.
And the fact that he's also buying Zanthia's allegiance as well, so he is hedging his bets on that front. I am your creature. It doesn't take much to turn her, and we've already established her early on as someone who actually Sophonisba was not that desperately impressed with. I think we said off camera when we were talking about the Zanthia sort of internalized the patriarchy. There's the opinions that she's had earlier are coming through here. And she has this whole speech trying to turn Sophonisba around. Lois?
Yeah, what I think is interesting is the importance of letters in this play, and letters that people just read silently and then respond to, so that the audience sort of intuits what must have been in the letter. I mean, clearly when Sophonisba hears that Massinissa is alive after all, since she's just been told that he was dead, this makes a huge difference to her as well. I think that that cave is interesting too, that they go into a cave and they're going to come out of a cave. I see at the beginning of the next scene. That's presumably that bit at the back of the stage. Oh, and the other thing that's puzzling is that Syphax seems to know that she's gone into it, but Zanthia must tell him that in a whisper or something. I don't think she actually says it, does she?
Not out loud.
No.
Yeah, Vangue has a little line about like, what am I doing? Where am I? And so their little conversation must take place during that short monologue of Vangue.
Yeah. It's something that got lost somewhere. Alan, Helen, then Sarah.
Yeah, I must admit, the way the script was going, I thought the sacrifice she was building up to was the Cleopatra solution.
Yeah.
I think it's just straightforward playing for time. But who knows? We don't know where the play's going. Helen?
Yes, I thought it was a weakness that the only way she knows about the vault is through Vangue, who is not on her side. I mean, what was her plan before? Because she'd obviously got a plan before he told her about the vault. I mean, it struck me as it possibly would pass very easily in playing, but in reading, it struck me as a little unhappy.
I bet her plan was to kill herself as the climax of the sacrifice. Then she discovers that Massinissa is alive. Then she discovers there's a way out of the place.
Yeah.
I think there's an awful lot in this scene that could be unpicked. I think there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. Sarah, then Francis.
Yeah, that actually did not bother me, because if she's thinking on her feet, she hasn't perhaps necessarily thought through the next stage. It's like, let's just get him out of the room, then I can collect myself, work out what I'm going to do next. That did not bother me, and like, yeah, maybe she was going to commit suicide, and then she realizes it's an escape. What really does bother me is the fact that there is such an easy escape, because what she actually says to him is, yes, to what use, gentle Negro, serves this cave? After
I've just noticed this interesting architecture feature at the back of the room. That's an interesting thing.
And he actually says, close the vault's mouth lest we do slip and drink. And it's like, well, come on, Marston. I mean...
Yeah. I think it's awkward.
Why would Syphax hold her in a room that clearly has this vault with a massive cave entrance in it on one side of the room? Oh, you're never going to escape through that. I mean, I know he leaves his guard with her, but even so, I mean, come on, that is a bit of a plot hole.
And the fact that she's just carrying around the drugs.
Opium, yeah.
Anyway, I think you're thinking about this too hard. I don't think an audience cares. Though it's a really good point, Francis.
Yeah, I felt really sorry for poor Vangue. I was expecting, once they drugged him and pushed him in the bed and covered him up, and Syphax came in, I was expecting some comic business once he discovered the deception, subterfuge, and then the whole thing took a very violent turn.
Yeah, there is a real problem with the racializing of this character. Yeah. I mean, he's basically fridged very quickly. Yeah. And it's the fact that he's they keep referring to him as Gentle Negro to set up the he appears as a devil. And the way that blackness can be highlighted in that way, or in various other plays, we've had references to that to do with people's complexions, or whether they're covered in their work covers them in dirt. So that's the image that is being presented as a comic moment, and then he gets killed. Yeah. And this has been set up from the first scene, and that's his sole function as a character is defined by race, and that's really a problem for what we do with it today. Other hands, Eric, then Stephen.
I was going to say that maybe like if they didn't what's her name, Sophonisba had not like discovered the cave, maybe she would just drug herself and then expect that she'd be carried out like as a sort of dead body.
Yeah, I don't think it matters that she knows what the plan is. I think there is an improvisation element there.
Yeah.
Helen's just asked in the chat, do they script Vangue? I suggest they do. They do.
Yeah, I got that impression.
Yeah.
Also, there are another two. They're not necessarily on stage, but our anti-hero, well, whatever. The man suggests that he's going to have her held by two black men.
And the
while
question
he rapes her.
Yeah, there's a question of actually the various countries and races that these characters might be historically as to how they're presented in the play and how their distinctions occur, which is something to dig into at another point. Stephen.
I just realised it was a duck question. I'm sorry.
Okay, then we'll move rapidly on. Any final thoughts on Act 3? Those two scenes there before we go into Act 4. Once again, we'll rattle through Act 4 at a reasonable amount of pace. So organs and viols and voices play for this act. So a bit of a scene change. In terms of lighting and music to reset the mood. A bit of time has perhaps passed in Blackfriars. Enter Sophonisba and Zanthia as out of a cave's mouth.
Where are we, Zanthia?
Vangue said the cave opened in Bellos Forest.
The Lord, how sweet I scent the air. The The huge long vault's close vein, what damps it breathed? In Bellows forest, sayest. Be valiant, Zanthia. How far's Utica from from these most heavy shades?
10 easy leagues.
There's Massinissa, my true Zanthia. Shall us venture nobly to escape and touch my lord's just arms? Love's wings so nimbly heave the body up that, as our toes shall trip over the tender and obedient grass, scarce any drop of dew is dashed to the ground. And see the willing shade of friendly night makes safe our instant haste. Boldness and speed make action most impossible succeed.
But madam, know the forest hath no way but one to pass. The witch holds strictest guard.
Do not betray me, Zanthia.
Ay, madam.
No, I not mistrust thee yet, but...
Here you may delay your time.
Ay, Zanthia, delay, by which we may yet hope, yet hope. Alas, how all benumbs my sense. Chance hath often struck I scarce can feel. I should now curse the gods, call on furies, stamp with the patient earth, cleave my stretched cheek with sound, spend from all sense, but loud and full of players' eloquence. No, what shall we eat?
Madam, I'll search for some ripe nuts, which autumn hath shook down from the unleafed hazel. Then some cooler air shall lead me to a spring, or I will try the courteous pail of some foresters for milk.
Do, Zanthia. Oh, happiness.
And exit Zanthia.
Oh, happiness of those that know not pride or lust of city. There's no man blessed but those most men pity. O fortunate poor maids that are not forced to wed for state, nor are for state divorced, whom policy of kingdoms doth not marry, but pure affection makes to love or vary. You feel no love which you dare not to show, nor show it love which doth not truly grow. Oh, you are surely blessed of the sky. You live that know not death before you die.
And through the vault's mouth, in his nightgown, a torch in his hand, Syphax enters just behind Sophonisba.
You are...
In Syphax's arms! Thing of false lip, what god shall now release thee?
Art a man?
Thy limbs shall feel. Despite thy virtue, know, I'll thread thy richest pearl. This forest deaf, as is my lust. Night and the god of silence swells my full pleasures. No more shalt thou delude my easy credence. Virgin of fair brow, well-featured creature, and our utmost wonder, queen of our youthful bed, be proud.
Syphax setteth aside his light, and prepareth to embrace Sophonisba.
I'll use thee.
Sophonisba snatcheth out her knife.
Look thee, view this. Show but one strain of force. Bow but to seize this arm, and by myself, or more, by Massinissa, this good steel shall set my soul on wing. Thus formed gods see, and men with God's worth envy naught but me.
Do strike thy breast. No, being dead, I'll use with highest lust of sense thy senseless flesh. And even then thy vexed soul shall see without resistance thy trunk prostitute unto our appetite.
I shame to make thee know how vile thou speakest. Corruption then as much as thou shalt do, but frame unto thy lusts imagination's utmost sin. Syphax, I speak all frightless. I know I live or die to Massinissa, nor force of fate shall make me leave his love or slake thy hate. I will speak no more.
Thou hast amazed us. Women's forced use, like unripe fruits, no sooner got but waste. They have proportion, colour, but no taste. Think, Syphax, Sophonisba, rest thine own. Our guard,
And enter a guard.
creature of most astonishing virtue. If with fair usage, love, and passionate courtings we may obtain the heaven of thy bed, we cease no suit. From other force be free. We dote not on thy body, but love thee.
Wilt thou keep faith?
By thee, and by that power by which thou art thus glorious. Trust my vow. Our guard, convey the royalst excellence that ever was called woman to our palace.
Ooh, looks like we have a brief... Sarah, are you there?
Oh, sorry, I froze there. What?
You did. Just do the last two lines of yours again, please.
Oh, okay. Our guard, convey the royalst excellence that ever was called woman to our palace. Observe her with strict care.
Dread Syphax, speak. As thou art worthy, is not Zanthia false?
To thee she is.
As thou art then thyself, let her not be.
She is not.
And the guards see this, and that Zanthia.
Thus, most speed, when two foes are grown friends, partakers bleed.
When plants must flourish, their manure must rot.
Syphax, be recompensed. I hate thee not.
Exeunt Sophonisba, Zanthia, and guard leading Syphax alone.
A wasting flame feeds on my amorous blood, which we must cool, or die. What way all power, all speech, full opportunity can make, we have made fruitless trial. Infernal Jove, you resolute angels that delight in flames, to you, all wonder-working spirits, I fly. Since heaven helps not, deepest hell will try. Here, in this desert, the great soul of charms, dreadful Erictho lives, whose dismal brow condemns all roofs or civil coverture. Forsaken graves and tombs, the ghosts forced out, she joys to inhabit.
And infernal music plays softly whilst Erictho enters, and when she speaks, ceaseth.
A loathsome yellow leanness spreads her face. A heavy, hell-like paleness loads her cheeks. Unknown to a clear heaven, but if dark winds or thick black clouds drive back the blinded stars, when her deep magic makes forced heaven quake, and thunder spite of Jove, Erictho then from naked graves stalks out, heaves proud her head with long unkempt hair loaden, and strives to snatch the night's quick sulphur. Then she bursts up tombs from half-rot cerecloths. Then she scrapes dry gums for her black rites. But when she finds a corpse but newly graved, whose entrails are not turned to slimy filth, with greedy havoc then she makes fierce spoil, and swells with wicked triumph to bury her lean knuckles in his eyes. Then doth she gnaw the pale and o'er-grown nails from his dry hand. But if she finds some life yet lurking close, she bites his jellied lips, and, sticking her black tongue in his dry throat, she breathes dire murmurs, which enforce him bear her baneful secrets to the spirits of horror. To her first sound, the gods yield any harm, as trembling once to hear a second charm. She is...
Here, Syphax, here. Quake not, for know I know thy thoughts. Thou wouldst entreat our power, nice Sophonisba's passion to enforce to thy affection. Be all full of Jove. 'Tis done. 'Tis done. To us, heaven, earth, sea, air, and fate itself obeys. The beasts of death and all the terrors angry gods invented to afflict the ignorance of patient man tremble at us. The rolled-up snake uncurls his twisted knots at our affrighting voice. Are we incensed? The king of flames grows pale, lest he be choked with black and earthy fumes, which our charms raise. Be joyed, make proud thy lust. I do not pray you, gods, my breaths, you must.
Deep-knowing spirit, mother of all high, mysterious science, what may Syphax yield worthy thy art, which my soul's thus eased? The gods first made me live, but thou live pleased.
Know then, our love, hard by the reverent ruins of a once glorious temple reared to Jove, whose very rubbish, like the pitied fall of virtue most unfortunate, yet bears a deathless majesty, though now quite raised, hurled down by wrath and lust of impious kings, so that where holy flamens wont to sing sweet hymns to heaven, there the door and crow, the ill-voiced raven and still chattering pie, send out ungrateful sounds and loathsome filth. Where statues and Jove's acts were vaguely limbed, boys with black coals draw the veiled parts of nature and lecherous actions of imagined lust. Where tombs and beauteous urns of well-dead men stood in assured rest, the shepherd now unloads his belly, corruption most abhorred, mingling itself with their renowned ashes. Ourself quakes at it. There once a charnel house, now a vast cave over whose brow a pale and untrod grove throws out her heavy shade. The mouth, thick arms of darksome hue, sun-proof forever choke. Within rests barren darkness, fruitless drought pines in eternal night. The steam of hell yields not so lazy air. There, that's my cell. From thence a charm, which Jove dare not hear twice, shall force her to thy bed. But, Syphax, no. Love is the highest rebel to our art. Therefore I charge thee by the fear of all which thou knowest dreadful or more, by ourself, as with swift haste she passeth to thy bed, and easy to thy wishes yields. Speak not one word, nor dare, as thou dost fear the loss of joys, to admit one light. One light.
As to my fate, I yield my guidance.
Then, when I shall force the air to music, and the shades of night to form sweet sounds, make proud thy raised delight. Meantime, behold, I go a charm to rear, whose potent sound will force ourself to fear.
Whither is Syphax heaved? At length shall joy's hopes more desired than heaven? Oh, sweet labouring earth, let heaven be unformed with mighty charms. Let Sophonisba only fill these arms. Jove will not envy thee. Blood's appetite is Syphax's god. My wisdom is my sense. Without a man I hold no excellence. Give me long breath, young beds, and sickness ease. For we hold firm that's lawful which doth please.
Infernal music plays softly.
Hark! Hark now rise infernal tones, the deep-fetched groans of labouring spirits that attend Erictho.
Erictho.
Now crack the trembling earth and send shrieks that portend affrightment to the gods which hear Erictho.
Erictho.
And
Hark!
there's playing a treble viol, a bass lute, plays softly within the canopy as Syphax continues speaking.
Hark! Hark! Now softer melodies strike mute disquiet nature. Oh, thou power of sound, how thou dost melt me. Hark! Now even heaven gives up his soul amongst us. Now's the time when greedy expectation strains mine eyes for their loved object. Now Erictho willed, prepare my appetite for love's strict gripes. Oh, you dear founts of pleasure, blood and beauty, raise active Venus, worth fruition of such provoking sweetness. Hark, she comes.
A short song to soft music above.
Now nuptial hymns and forced spirits sing. Hark, Syphax, hark.
And there is singing.
Now hell and heaven rings with music, spite of Phoebus. Peace, she comes.
Enter Erictho in the shape of Sophonisba, her face veiled, and hasteth in the bed of Syphax.
Fury of bloods impatient, Erictho, 'bove thunder sit, to thee egregious soul let all flesh bend. Ah, Sophonisba, thy flame but equal mine, and wheel joy such delight that gods shall not admire, but even spite.
And Syphax hasteneth within the canopy as to Sophonisba's bed. End of the act, possibly a little musical interlude. Maybe they're changing the lights again, trimming the candles.
The theme to EastEnders has got to kick in at this point, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's gone interesting there. It's a question of how well does the audience get that it's Erictho in the shape of Sophonisba? Do they know that, or is that just for our knowledge for what is about to come? It's an interesting question. Lois?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that what happens is that Sophonisba comes in and goes to the bed, so that it really does look like Sophonisba. And that's why there's an act break here, because at the beginning of the next act, I've seen the stage direction, it's obviously going to be the actor playing Erictho.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing, is we know this because we've read this, is that question of does the audience know? Probably not. No. So, yes. So you hopefully there's a trap or there's another way of exiting behind the canopy so you can swap them round. Congratulations on Stephen. Throat lozenges are on their way. It's Helen put in the chat, you couldn't keep it up for a long run, and I'm thinking you couldn't keep it up for an evening. It's a great choice, but it's that's a really, really good way to damage one's vocal cords. Syphax, willing to be into or professes to be into necrophilia if necessary. He's not a very nice chap, is he? I'm just detecting these little notes that he's it's not someone you'd recommend for the Royal Society, is he? Sarah.
He is really fun to play, though. I mean, especially saying this as a woman who kind of never gets to play these roles. I mean, he is such a good laugh to play, because he's a mixture of just like really evil, really stupid, and just kind of goes at everything he does, whether stupid or evil, with such great gusto. It's fantastic.
Yeah, there is no middle speed here with him. Francis, then Stephen.
Yeah, I found that speech of his, which is effectively a drum roll for Erictho. I just thought it was, this imagery of this creature gnawing on the bodies of the dead. I just thought it was just so effective. And it really got you worked up for, for Erictho's grand entrance.
Yeah, and that he sort of has a drum roll. There is infernal music playing, and there's an awful lot of music in this. There are a few songs, but it's actually that this is something that you might think of as more like a melodrama. This has a score throughout, not just between acts. There's an awful lot of emphasis on the musicianship, rather than in some plays where it's emphasis on singing. It's the music going on in the background. Stephen.
There's a whole kind of note coming to the fore here, isn't there? Which is kind of disgust about the body. Even when Erictho's talking about this sort of temple, she's saying, and there's shepherds crapping in the ashes. You know, there's kids drawing, you know, rude pictures. You know, there's and what's that? That's a line about sticking a black tongue down his throat or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's gross, isn't it? And it's a kind of completely new note, it seems to me. And I think it's a, you know, without too many spoilers, it's just such a wonderful kind of setup, isn't it? Where, you know, kind of macho, out of control guy goes, yeah, and I'll sleep with you even when you're dead. And then, you know, what happens to him at the open of the next act is that, you know, the most disgusting sort of being he's actually, you know, slept with. And so, you know, there's this kind of wonderful irony that it just seems like, you know, female victimhood, you know, at the point where Sophonisba is maybe running out of options, you know, there's this kind of demon ex machina comes in to kind of redress the balance a little bit.
I mean, I've found with this play that you know, I was talking about, you know, very filmic yesterday. Today, at the moment, it's feeling like a horror film. It's feeling like something that David Lynch would really enjoy doing. I can see the montage sequence that is happening here between Act 4 and Act 5 as we go from what he thinks he's doing and what he's actually doing, blurring into each other. And it really does luxuriate in those images. Lois, then Helen.
Yeah. I'm finding it really hard to take as someone who hates horror and horror films. I have to be careful what I put in my mind because it stays there. But it really does work like melodrama. I mean, if you read a melodrama, there are stage directions all the time for music under this, music building, and so on, which is exactly what's happening in this. And there's even that horrible look behind you moment when he appears from the cave right behind Sophonisba. I mean, it seems to me the younger members of the audience might be screaming at this point.
It's a jump scare. I mean, it is a jump scare, punctuating other more sustained moments of tension. And yeah, I mean, that thing about melodrama, again, why it feels very filmic is, you know, that's what modern film is. It's melodrama. It's inherited all of the tropes of late 19th century melodrama, and run with it. It's a continuing form. Helen.
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep banging. Well, I've been talking in the chat about the nuts.
Tell the audience at home about the nuts. Do they come from Brazil?
No, they're hazelnuts, undoubtedly. But the point is that Sophonisba and Zanthia have come through the passage into the wood. And there's only one route through the wood to get out. And they know that he's behind them. And they know that they've got an hour. And she says, what shall we eat? And sends her for blasted nuts. I mean, it probably passes very well in production, but I think there has to be some sort of motivation for them not to be getting out of Dodge.
Well, yeah, I've got two on that. One is just they're very tired. You know, they need a quick break. And I think actually she's just trying to get rid of Zanthia. I don't think she trusts her for a second. That was my feeling. Yeah. Anyway, Eric, then Lois.
I was going to say that it's probably just also horror film logic, where they kind of like, you know, let's go explore that cabin in the woods, and then there's like an axe murderer behind them or something, and it's like, you know, that kind of, yeah, which you should really never do. Yeah. But also, I just wanted to talk about like that bit where, like, how is the most logical thing to go from, you know, like I'm gonna, you know, have sex with your dead body, and then like the next thing is, well, yeah, actually I'm not going to right now, I'm gonna go, you know, look for the enchantress. How is that the next logical thought? Because like, I mean, if he's gonna, he doesn't seem to be a man of his word in that sense. He threatens he's going to do it, but he wants her alive, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there is a question of how much of it is boastful, you know, just getting off on his own unpleasantness, and whether he actually practically has those plans in mind. Lois, then Stephen, then Sarah, but that's it. We need to move on.
Yeah, well, sorry, but this thing is really hard to read. I mean, Marston's syntax and so on is peculiar, but I think what's going on is that Zanthia is betraying Sophonisba. I mean, she says there's only one way out and it's guarded, and why don't we just stay here and rest and I'll get some nuts? Meanwhile, knowing that Syphax is behind them because she's already betrayed Sophonisba to Syphax anyway. So that's why that happens.
Stephen, muted at the moment.
Anyway,
I was wondering about back to the cave thing. Dido and Aeneas get together in a cave, so I wonder if it's a kind of Carthage callback, if you like.
Hey, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
We've established what the geography of Carthage is. There's a cave, people.
There's
there's
one
also-
cave.
Yeah, there's the ruined temples thing, perhaps. But I was just wondering because there's some wonderful academic work about the afterlife in people's minds of Dido, the Marlowe play Dido, and I just wonder, 15 years later, let's go and see a Carthage play. Oh, it's got to have a cave in it.
A cave where sexy times were had. And,
Exactly. So there's
yeah.
a kind of sophisticated theatrical game going on here, perhaps. Who knows?
No, I like that.
Excellent.
Sarah, before we move on, thoughts?
Yeah, I was just following up on Eric's point, which was a very good one. I wonder if the fact that he, because he's sort of basically saying to her, "Oh well, I'm going to rape you anyway, whether you're alive or dead," and takes such great pleasure in freaking her out with that whole extended metaphor, or not threat. Rather than metaphor. I wonder if that is what triggers in his mind, because clearly he knows a lot about Erictho. I mean, clearly he's done his homework. He's thought about calling her up before, obviously, the fact that he knows so much about her. So maybe it's just that thing of like thinking it through in his head makes him suddenly think, oh, well, actually, talking of dead bodies, I could call upon this demoness. Or maybe not.
Excellent. Well, as we have to move on. We've got the rest of the Act 5 to get through, and we're going to rattle through that again. Similarly, probably without stopping. I may change my mind. So probably the candles, because we had the reference to no light. So perhaps during the mini break, the candles have been severely not just trimmed, but also a lot of them perhaps put out. In this internal, inside Blackfriars. So it's probably very dark at the moment. So Act 5, Scene 1, just making sure that Erictho returns. So we've seen, as audience members, Sophonisba going to bed with Syphax. At this moment, Syphax draws the curtains and discovers Erictho lying with him.
Light! Light! Oh, thou rotten scum of hell! I abhorred heat! Oh, loath delusion!
They leap out of the bed. Syphax takes to him his sword.
Why, fool of kings, could thy weak soul imagine that 'tis within the grasp of heaven or hell to enforce love? Why, no love dotes the fates. Jove groans beneath his weight. Mere ignorant thing. Know we, Erictho, with a thirsty womb, have coveted full threescore sons for blood of kings. We that can make enraged Neptune toss his huge curled locks without one breath of wind. We that can make heaven slide from Atlas' shoulder. We, in the pride and height of covetous lust, have wished with woman's greediness to fill our longing arms with Syphax' well-strung limbs. And dost thou think if philters or hell charms could have enforced thy use, we would have deigned brain sleights? No, no. Now We are full of our dear wishes. Thy proud heat, well wasted, hath made our limbs grow young. Our love, farewell. No, he that would force love thus seeks his hell.
And Erictho slips into the ground as Syphax offers his sword to her.
Can we yet breathe? Oh, is any plague like me? Are we? Oh, let's think. Oh, now contempt, my hate to thee, thy thunder sovereign scorn name. He whose life's loathed and he who breathes to curse his very being, let him thus with me.
And Syphax kneels at the altar.
For an altar, sacred to black powers and thus dare heavens, O thou, whose blasting flames hurl barren droughts upon the patient earth, and thou, gay god of riddles and strange tales, hot-brained Phoebus, all add, if you can, something unto my misery. Oh, if aught of plagues lurk in your deep-trenched brows, which yet I know not, let them fall like bolts, which wrathful Jove drives strong into my bosom. Oh, if any chance of war or news ill-voiced, mischief unthought of lurk, come, give it us all. Heap curse on curse. We can no lower fall.
And that was not a sensible thing to say. Out of the altar, the ghost of Asdrubal ariseth.
Lower, lower.
What damned air is formed into that shape? Speak. Speak. We cannot quake. Our flesh knows not ignoble tremblings. Speak. We dare thy terror. Methinks Helen fate should dread a soul with woes made desperate.
Know me the spirit of great Asdrubal, father to Sophonisba, whose black heart made justly most unfortunate. For know I turned unfaithful, after that the field chanced to our loss, when of thy men there fell 6,000 souls, next fight of Libyans 10, after which loss we unto Carthage flying, the enraged people cried, their army fell through my base treason. Straight my revengeful furies makes them pursue me. I, with resolute haste, made to the grave of all our ancestors, where poisoned, hoped my bones would have long rest. But see, the violent multitude arrives, tear down our monument, and me now dead, deny a grave, hurl us among the rocks to staunch beasts' hunger. Therefore, thus engraved, I seek slow rest. Now dost thou know more woes, and more must feel. Mortals, O fear to slight your gods and vows. Jove's arm is of dread might.
Yet speak. Shall I o'ercome approaching foes?
Spirits of wrath know nothing but their woes.
And exit the ghost and enter Nuntius.
Liege, my liege, the scouts of Cirta bring intelligence of sudden danger. Full 10,000 horse, fresh and well rid, strong Massinissa leads, as wings to Roman legions that march swift, led by that man of conquest, Scipio.
Scipio?
Direct to Cirta.
And a march far off is heard.
Hark! Their march is heard even to the city.
Help. Our guard, my arms. Bid all our leaders march. Beat thick alarms. I have seen things which thou wouldst quake to hear. Boldness and strength. The shame of slaves be fear. Up, heart, hold sword. Though waves roll thee on shelf, though fortune leave thee, leave not thou thyself.
And he exits arming himself. Act 5, Scene 2. Enter 2 pages with targets and javelins. Laelius and Jurgurth with halberds. Scipio and Massinissa armed. Cornets sounding a march.
Stand.
Give the word. Stand.
Part the file.
Give way. Scipio, by thy great name, but greater virtue, by our eternal love, give me the chance of this day's battle. Let not thy envied fame vouchsafe to oppose the Roman legions against one weakened prince of Libya. This quarrel's mine. Mine be the stroke of fight. Let us and Syphax hurl out well-forced darts, each into other's breast. Oh, what should I say? Thou beyond epithet, thou whom proud lords of fortune may even envy. Alas, my joy is so vast, makes me seem lost. Let us thunder and lightning strike from our brave arms. Look, look, seize that hill. Hark, he comes near, from thence discern us. Strike fire worth Jove. Mount up, and not repute me very proud, though wondrous resolute. My cause is my bold heartening odds. That sevenfold shield, just arms, should fright the gods.
Thy words are full of honor. Take thy fate.
Which we do scorn to fear, to Scipio state worthy his heart. Now let the forced brass sound on.
And cornets sound a march. Scipio leads his train up onto the mount.
Jurgurth, clasp sure our casque, arm us with care. And Jurgurth, if I fall through this day's malice, or our father's sins, if it in thy sword lie, break up my breast and save my heart, that never fell nor sued to aught but Jove and Sophonisba. Sound, stern hearteners unto wounds and blood, sound loud, for we have named Sophonisba.
And cues cornets, there's a flourish.
So,
And the cornets lead to a march far off.
hark, hark, he comes, stand blood. Now multiply force more than fury. Sound high, we strike for Sophonisba.
Enter Syphax armed, his pages with shields and darts before, cornets sounding marches.
For Sophonisba!
Syphax,
Massinissa,
betwixt us two, let's single fight try all.
well urged.
Well granted. Of you, my stars, as I am worthy you, I implore aid. And oh, if angels wait upon good hearts, my genius be as strong as I am just.
King's glory is their wrong. He that may only do just acts a slave. My gods, my arm, my life, my heaven, my grave to me, all end.
Give day, gods, life, not death, to him that only fears blaspheming breath. For Sophonisba.
For Sophonisba!
And cornets sound a charge, and Massinissa and Syphax combat. Stage fighting, excitement and stuff. Syphax falls. Massinissa unclasps Syphax's casque and is about to kill him when Syphax speaks.
Unto thy fortune, not to thee, we yield.
Live Sophonisba, yet unstained. Speak just, yet ours unforced.
Let my heart fall more low than is my body, if only to thy glory. She lives, not yet all thine.
Rise, rise. Cease strife. Hear a most deep revenge. From us take life.
Cornets sound a march. Scipio and Laelius enter. Scipio passeth to his throne. Massinissa presents Syphax to Scipio's feet. Cornets sounding a flourish.
To you all power of strength, and next to thee, thou spirit of triumph born for victory, I heave these hands. March we to Syrta straight, my Sophonisba with swift haste to win. In honor and in love, all mean is sin.
Exeunt Massinissa and Jurgurth, leaving behind Scipio and Syphax.
As we are Rome's great general, thus we press thy captive neck. But as still Scipio and sensible of just humanity, we weep thy bondage. Speak, thou ill-chanced man, what spirit took thee when thou wert our friend? Thy right hand given both to gods and us with such most passionate vows and solemn faith, thou fledst with such most foul disloyalty to now weak Carthage? Strengthening their bad arms, who lately scorned thee with all loathed abuse, who never entertained for love but use.
Scipio, my fortune is captive, not I. Therefore I'll speak bold truth, nor once mistrust what I shall say, for now, being wholly yours, I must not feign. Sophonisba, 'twas she. 'Twas Sophonisba that solicited my forced revolt. 'Twas her resistless suit, her love to her dear Carthage, 'ticed me break all faith with men. 'Twas she made Syphax false, she that loves Carthage with such violence, and hath such moving graces to allure, that she will turn a man that once hath sworn himself on father's bones, her Carthage foe, to be that city's champion and high friend. Her hymeneal torch burnt down my house. Then was I captive, when her wanton arms threw moving clasps about my neck. Oh, charms, able to turn even fate. But this, in my true grief, is some just joy, that my love-sotted foe shall seize that plague, that Massinissa's breast her hands shall arm, and that ere long you'll try, she can force him your foe as well as I.
Laelius, take a choice troop of horse and spur to Massinissa thus. Syphax palace, crown spoiled, city's sack, be free to him. But if our new-leagued friend possess that woman of so moving art, charge him with no less weight than his dear vow, our love, all faith, that he resign her thee, as he shall answer Rome, will him give up a Roman prisoner to the Senate's doom. She's a Carthaginian. Now our laws, wise men prevent, not actions but ever cause.
Good malice. So is liberty so dear, prove my revenge. What I cannot possess, another shall not. That's some happiness.
Exuent cornets flourishing. Oh, I think we have to pause there. Syphax, yeah. We get lots of action, we get fight scenes, we get excitement. I'm sure Massinissa gets to, flex his muscles and be really, really sweaty and gorgeous. And then Syphax just goes, "It was all her fault. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for her." And it's just I just was going, "Oh, you, oh yeah." And you're thinking, Scipio, don't be, no. And he sort of does. It's, yeah. This could be a happy ending. You could ended the play. You could have just killed, Syphax or put him in prison, and play ends there. Happy ending. Thoughts in the room, Eric.
Yeah, but it's a tragedy, so it wouldn't really be a tragedy if you had if he wasn't so terrible and stuff.
But it didn't have to be a tragedy, man.
But it's also interesting because it's not usually tragedies, at least classical Greek ones occur because sort of they of some fatal flaw, Oedipus, that kind of stuff. But here it's just they just want her and he can't have her, so he decides to sort of kill her.
Other thoughts? I've got nothing. Lynn.
Yeah, we've come a long way from, I would rather just take my rejection privately, but since I'm not really a private man, I'm a public figure, I have to revenge this. That you remember in the very beginning, his Syphax's first speech was about how honor compelled him to take revenge for Sophonisba's rejection. But of course, by the end of that scene, which isn't long, he's talking about his passion rather than being compelled by honor and social expectation. So, but we have come quite a long way from those claims at the beginning of the play.
Yeah, it's all just gone a bit. Yeah, he's just nastier and nastier, really, isn't he? He just sort of just keeps going that way. Other thoughts, briefly, Helen?
Yeah, I think the moral of this is, if you've got him down, kill him.
Yeah. Why did he? He's just too good by half.
He's such a good guy.
Also, he said it would be a greater revenge to make him live and see his rival succeed.
Yeah, that made no sense when Blake kept allowing Travis to survive the end of an episode. It didn't work in the 1970s, 80s. It didn't work in the early 1600s. It's a terrible, terrible thing. Lois.
And a shocking ending.
Yes.
I mean, I'm still traumatized by that.
No spoilers for anyone who's not seen. Lois.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that even Sophonisba is much more vengeful than Massinissa. I mean, she does get her maid killed for betraying her. We didn't really take note of that because it happens. She just says, "Let her not be," I think, which is a great way of saying kill her.
Yeah, you can't trust her. She's yes, it did sort of fly by, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we've got another chunket to do as we rattle towards the climax of the play, which we do need to read. Francis, I'm going to ask you to read The Soldier coming up here as well, because, yes, that was that character there. So Act 5, Scene 3, cornets, more of those cornets. Afar off, sounding a charge, a soldier wounded at one door enters at another. Sophonisba, 2 pages before her with lights, 2 women bearing up her train.
Princess, oh fly! Syphax hath lost the day, and captive lies. The Roman legions have seized the town, and with inveterate hate make slaves, or murder all. Fire and steel, fury and night hold all. Fair queen, oh fly! We bleed for Carthage, all for Carthage die.
And he exits. Cornet sounding a march. Enter pages with javelins and targets, reused from 3 times now, I think, so far. Massinissa and Jurgurth enter. Massinissa's beaver is shut.
March to the palace.
Whate'er man thou art, of Libya thy fair arms speak. Give heart to mazed weakness. Hear her that for long time hath seen no wished light. Sophonisba, a name for misery much known. 'Tis she entreats thy graced sword this only boon. Let me not kneel to Rome. For though no cause of mine deserves their hate, though Massinissa be ours to heart, yet Roman generals make proud their triumphs with whatever captives. Oh, 'tis a nation which from soul I fear, as when well knowing the much grounded hate they bear to Asdrubal and Carthage blood. Therefore, with tears that wash thy feet, with hands unused to beg, I clasp thy manly knees. Oh, save me from their fetters and contempt, their proud insults, and more than insolence. Or, if it rest not in thy grace of breath, to grant such freedom, give me long-wished death, for 'tis not now loathed life that we do crave, but only unshamed death and a silent grave we will now deign to bend for.
Rarity.
Massinissa disarms his head.
By thee and this right hand thou shalt live free.
We cannot now be wretched.
Stay the sword, let slaughter cease. Sounds soft as Leda's breast slide through all ears.
And soft music plays.
This night be love's high feast.
Oh, o'erwhelm me not with such sweets. Let me not drink till my breast burst, O Jove, thy nectar.
And she sinks into Massinissa's arms.
She is o'ercome with joy.
Help, help to bar some happiness, ye powers. I have joy to spare, enough to make a god. Oh, Massinissa.
Peace, A silent thinking makes full joys increase.
Unfortunately, enter Laelius.
Massinissa,
Laelius,
thine ear.
stand off.
From Scipio thus: by thy late vow of faith and mutual league of endless amity, as thou respects his virtue or Rome's force, deliver Sophonisba to our hand.
Sophonisba.
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 Well, I'm sorry. My lord looks pale, and from his half-burst eyes a flame of deep disquiet breaks. The gods turn false, my sad presage.
Sophonisba.
Even she.
She killed not Scipio's father, nor his uncle, great Cnaeus.
Carthage did.
To her, what's Carthage?
No, 'twas her father Asdrubal struck off his father's head. You placed to faith and fate.
'Tis cross to honor.
But 'tis just to state. So speaketh Scipio. Do not thou detain a Roman prisoner due to his great triumph, as thou shalt answer Rome and him.
Laelius, we now are in Rome's power. Laelius, view Massinissa do a loathed act, most sinking from that state his heart did keep. Look, Laelius, look, see Massinissa weep. No, I have made a vow, more dear to me than my soul's endless being. She shall rest free from Rome's bondage.
But dost thou forget thy vow, yet fresh, thus breathed, when I desist to be commanded by thy virtue, Scipio, or fall from friend of Rome, revenging gods afflict me with your torture?
Laelius, enough. Salute the Roman. Tell him we will act what shall amaze him.
Wilt thou yield her then?
He shall arrive there straight.
Best fate of men to thee.
And Scipio.
Exit Laelius with pages.
Have I lived, O heavens, to be enforcedly perfidious?
What unjust grief afflicts my worthy lord?
Thank me, gods, with much beholdingness, for mark, I do not curse you.
Tell me, sweet, the cause of thy much anguish.
The cause? Let's see. Wreathe back thine arms, bend down thy neck, practice base prayers, make fit thyself for bondage.
Bondage?
Bondage, Roman bondage.
No, no.
How then have I vowed well to Scipio?
How then to Sophonisba?
Right, which way? Run mad, impossible, distraction.
Dear Lord, thy patience, let it maze all power, and list to hear in whose soul heart it rests to keep thy faith upright.
Wilt thou be slaved?
No, free.
How then keep I my faith?
My death gives help to all. From Rome, so rest we free, so brought to Scipio, faith is kept in thee.
Thou darest not die. Some wine. Thou darest not die.
How near,
Enter a page with a bowl of wine.
how near was I unto the curse of man, joy. How like was I yet once to have been glad. He that ne'er laughed may with a constant face contemn Joe's frowns. Happiness makes us base.
She takes the bowl into which Massinissa puts poison.
Behold me, Massinissa, like thyself, a king and soldier. I prithee, keep my last command.
Speak, sweet.
Fear, do not weep. And now, with undismayed resolve, behold, to save you, for honor and such faith are most true gods, which we should much adore. With even disdainful vigor I give up an abhorred life.
She drinks.
You have been good to me. And I do thank thee, heaven. O my stars, I bless your goodness that with breast unstained, faith pure, a virgin wife, tried to my glory, I die, of female faith, the long-lived story, secure from bondage and all servile harms, but more, most happy in my husband's arms.
And she sinks.
Massinissa! Massinissa!
Covetous, fame-greedy lady, could no scope of glory, no reasonable proportion of goodness fill thy great breast, but thou must prove immense incomprehence in virtue? What, wouldst thou not only be admired, but even adored, O glory ripe for heaven? Sirs, help, help, help. Let us to Scipio with what speed we can. For piety make haste, whilst yet we are man.
And exeunt, bearing Sophonisba in a chair. We go into Act 5, Scene 4, as we conclude the play. Cornets sound a march. Enter Scipio in full state, triumphal ornaments carried before him, and Syphax bound. At the other door, Laelius.
What answers Massinissa? Will he send that Sophonisba of so moving tongue?
Full of dismayed unsteadiness he stood, his right hand locked in hers, which hand he gave as pledge for Rome she ever should live free. But when I entered and well urged this vow, and thy command, his great heart sunk with shame, his eyes lost spirit, and his heat of life sank from his face, as one that stood benumbed, all mazed to infected possibilities. For either unto her or Scipio he must break vow. Long time he tossed his thoughts, and as you see a snowball being rolled, at first a handful, yet long bowled about, insensibly acquires a mighty globe, so his cold grief through agitation grows, and the more he thinks, the more of grief he knows. At last he seemed to yield her.
Mark Scipio, trust him that breaks a vow.
How then trust thee?
Oh, misdoubt him not when he's thy slave, like me.
Enter Massinissa, all in black.
Scipio,
Massinissa,
general,
king.
lives there no mercy for one soul of Carthage, but must see baseness.
Wouldst thou joy thy peace, deliver Sophonisba straight and cease? Do not grasp that which is too hot to hold. We grace thy grief and hold it with soft sense. Enjoy good courage, but avoid insolence. I tell thee, Rome and Scipio deign to bear so low a breast as for her we say we fear.
Oh, do not, do not. Let not the fright of nations know such vile terms. She rests at thy dispose.
To my soul's joy. Shall Sophonisba then with me go bound and wait on Scipio's wheel? When the whole world's giddy, one man cannot reel.
Starve thy lean hopes. And Romans, now behold a sight would sad the gods, make Phoebus cold. Organ and recorders play to a single voice.
Enter in the meantime the mournful solemnity of Massinissa's presenting Sophonisba's body.
Look, Scipio, see what hard shift we make to keep our vows. Here, take, I yield her thee, and Sophonisba, I keep vow. Thou art still free.
Burst my vexed heart. The torture that most wrecks an enemy is his foe's royal acts.
The glory of thy virtue live forever. Brave hearts may be obscured, but extinct never.
Scipio adorns Massinissa.
Take from the general of Rome this crown, this robe of triumph, and this conquest's wreath. This scepter in this hand forever breathed Rome's fair minion. Live worth thy fame, as far from faintings as from now base name.
Thou whom, like sparkling steel, the strokes of chance made hard and firm, and like wildfire turned, the more cold fate, the more thy virtue burned, and in whole seas of miseries didst flame. On thee, loved creature of a deathless fame, rest all my honor. O thou, for whom I drink so deep of grief that he must only think, not dare to speak, that would express my woe. Small rivers murmur, deep gulfs silent flow. My grief is here, not here. Heave gently then, women's right wonder, and just shame of men.
Massinissa, having adorned Sophonisba, everybody exits. Cornets sound a short flourish, and Massinissa gets to do the epilogue. Change the mood, everybody.
Yeah. And now, with lighter passion, though with most just fear, I change my person, and do hither bear another's voice, who with a phrase as weak as his deserts, now willed me thus formed speak. If words well sensed, best suiting subject grave, noble, true story, may once boldly crave acceptance gracious. If he whose fires envy not others, nor himself admires, if scenes exempt from ribaldry or rage of taxings indiscreet may please the stage, if such may hope applause, he not commands, yet craves as due the justice of your hands. But freely he protests, howe'er it is, or well or ill, or much, not much, amiss, with constant modesty he does submit to all, save those that have more tongue than wit.
And with that, the play ends. All sorts of things. Similar game from earlier. Rather than bed us, interrupt us, here we have make out us, interrupt us. They're getting very hot, very hot there. And then we sort of are waiting for it to happen, Laelius comes in and says, bad things have to happen. Why? Because plot. And then we get Massinissa drinks the Kool-Aid, and that goes well. We do have that line which doesn't read desperately well to the cynical modern ear of bondage, Roman bondage.
The best sort.
The best kind is Roman bondage. You don't want any of that Carthaginian rubbish. No. Again, lots of repetition there. It's unfortunate, really, but that's just our sick modern minds. It's not the play's fault. So play ends, sadly, for Sophonisba, Massinissa. Do we get any real... I mean, it doesn't look like anybody trusts or likes Syphax at the end, but he doesn't seem to get any sort of, and now you're dead moment, does he? He's sort of still alive and probably not in a great way, but...
Well, I mean, Massinissa does say earlier that his revenge is going to be the fact that he has to live and see what happens. And I mean, I don't know if he did genuinely. I mean, I don't think for a moment he loves Sophonisba, but he did have some kind of weird, twisted feelings for her. So I mean, he has to live with the fact that she's killed herself rather than be with him.
Yeah, he gets 2 lines. Burst my vexed heart, the torture that most racks an enemy is his foe's royal acts. Damn you being so noble. Ooh, yeah, that's gonna hurt. That's that existential angst of me. Helen.
I mean, usually at the end of the triumph, a few of the principal captives were strangled. There's a hole that you can still see. They were dropped down.
Yeah, I mean, if it was just intimated or hinted that that's where that was going, I mean, I'm tempted to add it in. I mean, it's the same. Well, it's not the same problem. It's a similar thing with Asdrubal earlier, who, you know, the last time we saw him alive, he was in not great straits, but there was no intimation that he was dead. And then the next time we see him, he's a ghost. And doing ghosty things, and I was sort of going, if I was going to have a ghost turn up and say bad things are going to happen, I could think of other dead people in this play who would have been so much better for that role. Sorry, Sarah.
I wonder, is there a thing? I've no idea if this is right or not, but I wonder if there's a thing where like Marston is saving the deaths for the good people. Like it's almost like it's some kind of weird reward, like you live this virtuous life, you do the right thing, and then you get to have the honorable death. Whereas the bad guys either they do, because I mean Zanthia is the same. You know, you don't actually get to see them die. They it's like an ignoble death because they don't get to have their big speech or whatever. They just get carted off and they die, and that's what happens to her. Asdrubal dies off stage, and then Syphax, we don't know what's going to happen to him, but if it does,
I just want a death warrant.
Okay.
I don't need to see him die. I just need to know that he's going to die because I really, really want him to die. And yeah, that's something in production. I feel we need to solve is definitely some deathiness there. Unless anyone has other thoughts, they should remain alive. You know, maybe someone wants to go there. Stephen.
Well, yeah, it would be in keeping with the twists and turns of the plot, though, wouldn't it? If he just kind of, started laughing or something like that, it would be very sort of Marston-y, I think, for him not to actually take the lesson.
Lois.
Well, there is that sort of exchange with Scipio. I mean, he says don't trust him because he's breaking his vow when he thinks Massinissa has broken it. And then Scipio says, how should I trust thee? And, oh, well, that's different. I make him a slave like me and then we'll be trustworthy. I mean, it seems to me that's just pointing forward to the future, that he's not going to be trusted. It's just another of these, hanging endings. But I think we're meant to feel that nothing good is going to happen.
Yeah. It's interesting also when I was talking about, lines that don't land perhaps as well as they did originally because culture has done things with it. But the whole Scipio, Massinissa, General, King. There have been a few too many modern spoof things that have done, comedy things have done things with that. So that's unfortunate. That perhaps needs massaging in production. We are... Sorry, go on. Sorry, say again, Lynn?
I sort of like that moment. It's very David Mamet.
Yes, it is. I'm feeling the real tragedy here is that Massinissa and Sophonisba at no point get it on.
Yes.
I mean, they immediately she immediately commits suicide, and I'm sitting here thinking, you've got 5 minutes. I mean, it's a precious situation. But, dying a virgin, is that really your primary goal here? I feel that's the tragedy of this play.
Yeah.
I know that's not what the player's trying to do, but anyway, Lois.
No, it seems to me, again, as I was saying yesterday, there's a shade of Christianity hanging over both Sophonisba and Massinissa. I mean, he was talking about angels at one point. I know there were something like angels in classical mythology, but I think this is just them belonging to a different world, really.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right on that. They are very virtuous and very good, though not boring, as we stated the other day. As Massinissa's, there's an excess about him that makes him quite engaging.
There's also, I mean, we didn't really look at that bit where he's reading the letter from Galosso. When the guy that's about to poison him is standing there. That's actually really interesting. He says, are you poor? Oh, you're not poor. I mean, this is all just little lines, but I mean, since he's just read that this man is about to poison him, the point is, you needed the money? Oh, you didn't need the money. Well, I mean, it's just really interesting.
Yes, if you were killing me because of failures of our society, then that would be fine. But no, you're just a bastard, right?
Yeah.
It still doesn't kill him, though.
No, but the thing is that poisoner is so unbelievably stupid. Having been given his freedom, he goes back to the commissioning agents and immediately gets killed because that was inevitably what was going to happen. The man was an idiot, therefore deserved to die. Helen, are you leaning forward with intent?
No, I wasn't. But but on what you've just said, if everybody who was stupid deserved to die, the world would be a better place.
It'd be a lot emptier.
Yeah, I was going to say I think we should allow stupidity a place in our society. It's just it perhaps needs to be they're managed better.
How close to the levers of power?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is something for another session, another time. Final thoughts now. We're into extra time, so I'll just go round the room. Francis, having leapt in to the second half of this play, slightly different to the first half. Well, it's actually more than first half. Less than the first half was shorter because we only did 2 acts. How did you find it?
Yeah, as you say, I missed the first half, and I didn't have time to read the text that I missed, which is what I usually do. So just before we went online, I read the very handy plot synopsis at the beginning of the play. And I thought, God, this reads like a Saturday morning serial. Alan's comment that the whole business with the vault through which Sophonisba escapes, it's like a B-movie plot device. And so I started to see the whole thing as a kind of a sort of Flash Gordon with the Art Deco trappings. So yeah, it wasn't really my thing. Although I mean, there was some really great speeches. I mean, like I said, particularly that. The whole speech of Syphax in the run-up to Erictho's first appearance. But the whole thing was just a bit of a mishmash, really. And I don't agree about the central couples of Sophonisba and Massinissa. I just found them so dreary.
Okay, Eric. Final thoughts. You were here yesterday, so how did you feel the overall shape went for you?
I am surprised that there were no banquets this time, like no bringing on of stuff. Like, I don't know. I just realized like there's something missing from this. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, usually like even with poisonings, there's like some sort of banquet. Well, actually, the banquet has happened off stage, hasn't it? Like before the main character at the beginning, before they come in. But yeah, I don't know. I find it an interesting piece because it has that issue of, okay, what do you do if you want to stage it in the modern era, like now, well, or postmodern, depending on how you want to, post-structural, blah blah blah. But yeah, it's like because there are so many issues, like not just the racism, sexism, but also trigger warnings, sexual abuse, necrophilia, that kind of stuff, or at least hints at necrophilia. And sort of the forced / lack of consent. Then again, I mean, it's a play. It's sort of it's meant to be entertainment. So how far do you, or like sort of a tragedy at least, like people who watch Soul or that kind of thing. How bad does that make them? Does it make us any worse for watching it or for trying to put it on stage? I don't know.
Yeah, we're entering the territory of what is entertainment and art for, and how it functions, and what our responsibilities about producing something like this is for. I mean, I've been talking about it as a horror film, and I think that there's a lot to it about that. I mean, I don't think at any point we are sitting there going, "Isn't Syphax a great person we should emulate?" That's sort of why I'm sort of wishing that he gets terrible just desserts at the end. But there are very important questions that have to be asked about what might need adjusting and what happens to this text, and what frame of reference we use in producing it. Sarah, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just following on from what Eric was saying, I mean, yeah, okay, it has some problematic things in this play, but then, so do most Netflix dramas. It's like it depends how you interpret them. It depends how you play them. And I think if you run this play as a social commentary, or at least you play up the social commentary aspect of it, I think it could be done really well. But there are some cuts that would need to be made and like little tweaks that would have to be done most definitely. But but I actually think this would land quite well with a modern audience. Or that just could be because I liked it. I mean, I do tend to like the weird plays. The ones where it's all a bit nuts and all the different genres get mixed together. I really like that anarchy, and Marston is one of my favorite writers that we've done in these plays. I hadn't come across him before, but I find him amazing. So yeah, I would like to see this staged.
Yeah, I mean, it is a question of, you know, who you're marketing it to. You know, the horror aspects of it would appeal very much to an audience. There's definitely an audience for those elements. Whether they'd want to sit through the more history bits, as mixed with that. Obviously, bits of Lois, you were saying earlier, bits of it were definitely not to your taste. But how did you find it overall? Final thoughts?
No, it's really weird. I mean, he seems to be trying. I think it's his only attempt at a classical history play, and you know, he's mixing that with the straight sort of ghoulishness. And then when you think of it being performed by a children's company as well, then one wonders whether any of it's meant to be funny. I mean, sometimes it's so ghastly that it really it does start tipping over into farce. And then, on the other hand, the ending is clearly meant to be moving, I think. I mean, Massinissa taking off the laurel wreath and placing it on Sophonisba's head, and that whole final scene. I think, I mean, he's also, I think, trying to be classical, and possibly, I mean, maybe somebody else cut it, of course, but if it was meant to be written like this, he seems to be deliberately giving us scenes that start almost halfway through. I mean, things have happened between the scenes that we gradually find out about in the scene, which is rather unusual dramaturgy for this period. Usually people come on telling us what has just happened. So it's probably, in a way, it's a bit of an experiment, I think.
Yes, yeah. We don't think it's cut because there are author's notes and things about its printing. So it's, in fact, he sort of says, "Don't bother with me if I haven't put all the entrances in." You know, I'm not bothering with all of that stuff. And also, in terms of note of the company, though it's a nominally children's company, most of the company, I think, are supposed to be about sort of 16, 17. It's not a company that has lots of very young performers in it. Yeah. So it's a slightly, it's more, shall we say, young adult than children's company. So I think that's an interesting question about tone as well. Yeah. I think the younger they get, the more they don't like doing seriousness, and there seems to be that bent to some of the youth companies. Yeah.
I mean, it could be. I mean, he hadn't been so much in trouble for Eastward Ho as Johnson and Chapman, who were actually in jail over it, but that was only about a year before this, probably, pretty recently. And there may be some sense of, you know, let's do something set in the past that nobody can possibly think is topical.
Lynn, final thoughts?
Yes, I've been thinking about tragedy generically, even though this does sometimes have a sort of farcical feel to it, and it anticipates modern horror, because there's something, maybe not so much about classical tragedy, which Eric brought up, but there's something about early modern tragedy that's not just focusing on death, but it's actually anti-life. It's anti-sex. It's anti-fertility. There's something very sterile about a lot of examples I could think of early modern tragedy, and this is an example of it. Like the fact that the loving relationship never gets consummated, and there's all these very repulsive figurations of sexuality, sexual assault and non-consensual sex of various kinds and necrophilia. So all this like oh, sex is a bad thing, and the sex is a good thing, so it's a desirable thing part never gets played out, never gets developed. So there's so this in a way is a little weird, and it's really it may look like an outlier, but it has a lot of the same concerns that plays, tragic plays do in this period. That it's not only about death; it's about the absence of life and the absence of the impossibility of fertility and the impossibility of carrying on.
Alan, final thoughts.
I'm not sure that this is producible in modern terms. It's not a question of a light edit. It would be you would have to gut so much of it or cross-dress it, as Sarah suggested. And I'm not sure that it's worth the effort. There's some very good individual speeches, but as a whole, no, just didn't work for me.
I heard a cry of despair from Helen. Helen, final thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's a stonker of a play. I rather care for it. What I think nobody's talked about is the enormous musical cues, the vast quantity and the detailed musical cues, which I haven't really come across in this with this density before. And it makes me wonder exactly what resources were available at Blackfriars and whether this comes up. Other people will probably be able to say whether this comes up in other plays with this amount.
From what I've read literally just a few hours ago, it does seem that Blackfriars at this time were very, the company there were very into the music side of things more, whereas earlier boys' companies were very into the singing, because that's what the young boys were able to do very well. There seems to be more of an emphasis on the musicianship quality. So it might be coming out of that. We may find more of this when we do more plays around this, as we get more into this place. I don't know if Lois was going to say additional thoughts.
That
on
was
that.
pretty much what I was going to say. Yeah, that Blackfriars plays use a lot of music. Yeah.
And that's something that's really, really inviting. Stephen, final thoughts? I think you're the last.
I think it might have been different kind of music as well, because it's not sort of drums and trumpets. You know, the indoor playhouse, you've got sort of much more subtle stringed instruments that you can actually make work. And the intimacy of the setting, I think, gives you a completely different vibe. So that also might be part of it. The kind of music that they were able to think of writing in, and the kind of serial nature of it. You do have sort of 4 commercial breaks, as it were, and so that's an invitation then. So what we're going to do when the candles are on, the obvious thing is, well, let's have a good bit of music in it. I'd like to play. I'm not sure how. I think it would be difficult to stage though. But I like the way that it just kind of it's so light on its feet for me. I like the way that if you perhaps this is why I like it. I come to it with expectations about tragedies, and also expectations formed by the kinds of tragedies that we've read from 10, 15, 20 years earlier. And it kind of confounds those, the sort of sense of the grinding sense of inevitability approaching, and this sort of suffocation as things get worse and worse. This doesn't seem to be a play like that at all. There's always something nasty around the corner, but it doesn't do tragic inevitability. And I find that refreshing, I suppose, but it's because of my mental framing.
No, I think this play. I mean, it is a play that deals with sexual violence and unpleasant issues. It has the advantage that none of these unpleasantnesses actually occur. They are threatened, and it does weird and nasty things to the person who was threatening it. Which means that, yes, production has to be very, very careful, but I don't see a fundamental reason why it wouldn't be. I mean, to think of it in a modern performance context, again, slipping sideways, not quite into film, I see this very much as Carthaginian Horror Story. As opposed to the American Horror Story. It's it's something that actually fits surprisingly well into the kind of cultural products that we have today, and anticipates them in really interesting ways. Whether it's in the best of all possible tastes is another matter entirely. But this range of audience responses has been absolutely fascinating. I'm sure we're going to get more of those further down the line. If you agree or disagree with anything we've said, put it in the comments. What else are comments for but passive-aggressive abuse? So do pass that on to us, and get in touch and be part of the conversations. We try to decide what we may or may not do with this in the future. All that remains is to thank all the readers today, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.